Hello everyone, I'm Josh Bond and this video is a brief look at PHP. This video assumes that you know how to program in Java and that you're familiar with modern programming constructs. PHP was originally created by Rasmus Lerdorf in 1994. Then PHP stood for Personal Homepage. Today, PHP is a recursive acronym for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. PHP produces dynamic web page content, and it is by far the world's most popular server-side language. 83% of all websites that use a server-side language use PHP. Facebook relies on PHP, as does Yahoo, Etsy, Slack, Cloudflare, and so many more. Most content management systems are written in PHP, like WordPress, Drupal, and Magento. Because PHP is open source, no entity owns PHP. That's why PHP is completely free. A few years ago, PHP's demise was widely predicted because of frustration with poor design choices in the previous versions. PHP 7 has since arrived, addressing most of those concerns by modernizing the language while doubling the execution speed. PHP is executed in real time on the server by the PHP interpreter. There's no deployment, compilers, or preprocessors. That's why the developer can edit and save a file and then click refresh to immediately see the results. PHP code can be embedded in HTML or presented outside of HTML in the same file. You can also place code in a standalone file. Any file containing PHP must have the .php extension. PHP is loosely typed, meaning you do not declare a variable's data type. If you use a variable without declaring it, PHP will automatically create the variable for you. We'll talk about return types later. There's several other things you should know about PHP. PHP can now pass most variables, including objects, to a function by reference or by value. Except for superglobal variables, which we'll discuss later, PHP doesn't use server memory to track the state of variables from one request to another. One request won't necessarily fail because of the memory state from a previous interaction. Each PHP request executes in a single thread. There's also no information sharing between threads. PHP runs on almost any modern operating system, including Windows, Unix, and Linux. PHP supports most web servers like Apache and Microsoft's Internet Information Server. PHP also supports most database formats. The most common server configuration is Linux running Apache Web Server with a MySQL database. Each component is free and no enterprise or complex setup is needed. This results in a simple, easy to set up, lightweight development environment. This gets us up to speed on PHP's history, popularity, and general background. Now let's take a look at how to embed PHP in an HTML file. All PHP code must stay inside the PHP tags, which are shown in red on the screen, and there can be more than one set of tags in a file. Variables are prefixed with the dollar symbol, which is called a sigil. Like other languages, statements are terminated with a semicolon. As you would expect, PHP includes the usual data types, which work similar to Java. The same is true for decision-making and control flow features, which are shown on the screen. The code shows that variables can be created with no declared type, but PHP implicitly assigns a data type, and you can change the data type by storing a different type of data in the variable. The code on the right shows a function type declaration and a return type declaration. As a side note, PHP function names or method names are not case sensitive, but the rest of the language is. Function type declarations enforce expected data types instead of letting PHP implicitly attempt type conversions. Return type declarations are shown with a colon to the right of the function name. The code on the right prints the integer 8 because the float result of the addition is changed by the return type declaration. PHP operators work like most other languages. However, it's worth noting the difference between the equality comparison, which has two equal signs, and the identity comparison, which has three equal signs. The equality operator compares whether two values are loosely equal. The identity operator compares whether the values are strictly equal. The equality comparison is willing to make type conversions. The first example evaluates to true, just as you would expect. The second example is true because string 4 is converted to integer 4. In the third example, after type juggling, integer 0 is equal to string b. A string that does not start with numeric data is assigned integer 0, unless the string contains a dot, lowercase e, or an uppercase e. Then it's assigned a float. Unless you're familiar with the type juggling rules, it's usually best to use the identity comparison instead. The identity comparison compares whether two items are strictly equal. This works exactly as you would expect. Each expression is evaluated without type juggling or data conversion. There are two associative arrays on this slide. A is associated with apple, and B is associated with boy for both the X and Y variables. Given our definitions for the equality and identity operators, how does each expression evaluate? True or false? Stop and think. I'll give you 5 seconds, or you can pause the video if you want. Remember, the identity comparison is strictly equal, and the equality comparison is loosely equal. For this reason, the equality operator returns true, but the identity operator returns false because of the ordering of the associative array. This is an example of where the equality operator is actually useful in PHP. Classes and methods without an access designation are public. Notice how the dash followed by the right caret symbol is used to access an object's property where a dot would be used in Java. Like Java, inheritance is an is-a relationship by using the extends keyword. While both Java and PHP support implementing interfaces with the implements keyword, PHP also supports extending interfaces with the extends keyword. PHP has a global keyword that transforms a local variable into a global variable. The global variable keyword should not be confused with the global superglobal, which essentially does the same thing. The global superglobal contains custom variables in an array as set by the developer. I mostly just want you to know superglobals exist and contain functionality you already recognize from Java. The files superglobal includes files uploaded with the post method, and any object placed into the session superglobal is automatically serialized and unserialized for you. One of the hallmarks of PHP is ease of database access. PHP interacts with almost any database with no configuration other than inputting the username and password. The preferred method of database access is PHP Data Objects, or PDO, which is a database access abstraction layer. The example you see is very simple, but PDO also supports prepared statements and more complex functionality. Finally, let's briefly look at frameworks. MVC is the most popular PHP design pattern which most frameworks implement. Most frameworks, like PHP, are open source and completely free. Laravel has recently exploded in popularity and is supported by many web hosting companies. Laravel uses a contact routing system that prevents links from being broken and requiring updates. And a unique template system speeds development. Symfony has been around a long time. It offers a true rapid application development environment with an expansive set of reusable components. It's one of the better choices for large-scale or enterprise projects. Symfony comes in several flavors or distributions. One flavor specializes in content management systems, and that's why Drupal and PrestaShop were written using Symfony. CodeIgniter is probably the easiest to use and most lightweight of all the frameworks. In the end, simplicity is really what powers PHP. In under 5 minutes, you can install PHP on a web server along with MySQL and create a dynamic web page. PHP is amateur friendly, easily learned, promotes a fast work pace, and it's free. When you need to make progress quickly in a simple development environment, it's hard to beat PHP. For truly massive websites, Java does scale better than PHP. But the thought process is usually something like, let's start simple, and after we become the next Facebook, our technology can evolve then. If you want to further explore PHP after this semester, try using one of the bare bones MVC templates on GitHub to reproduce your class bookstore in PHP. The link is shown in the slide, or you can choose from the other templates on GitHub as well. Thank you for watching.